and welcome to GameStack. This time we're talking about sequels that are different than their original games.
Yeah, how about this, Joe? You go and buy a sequel to a game that you really liked, bring it home, pop it in, and then start playing and like, what the...
Yeah, it's
Did
like
you look at the game box? Did I buy the right game?
Yeah, it's like it could be its own game.
It really could be.
If it had a different name, you wouldn't think twice.
No, you really wouldn't. So
anyway, let's just get right on into it, and we'll show you some examples of what we mean. Zillion on the Sega Master System is based on the anime of the same name. You control JJ and you're looking for your colleagues Champ and Apple, and you're also on a mission to destroy the main computer. Basically, you're running around a giant-ass maze of rooms gaining codes to open doors and finding items along the way. This is done by blasting open the canisters in each room. They'll reveal a symbol that's actually just a number along with its mirrored self. You need 4 of these numbers to open a door or reveal an elevator. Put the correct ones in the computer in any order and you're free to progress. And this is pretty much what you'll be spending most of your time during the game doing. You'll also gain level ups for more life and gun power ups to increase your shot power. And did you notice that the gun looks like the Sega Light Phaser? Yep, Zillion uses the Sega Light Phaser design which Sega designed for a laser tag type game called Zillion, which in turn spawned the anime. It's all kind of crazy. Anyway, you gotta be careful of the traps that are around, and there are secret passageways and warps to find as well. It's all kinda sorta like Metroid, but not really. The game is pretty fun, even if the jump and shoot buttons are backwards. I usually can only play for about an hour before I get stuck or bored, and unfortunately there's no password system. However, this was a fairly popular game early on in the system's life. It's odd to me that Zillion II, the Tri-Formation, is nothing at all like the original. Well, the title screen just says Tri-Formation, but the box definitely says Zillion II. Anyway, you play as JJ and you start out on his motorbike. Actually, I think it may be a motor trike if I remember the anime series correctly. You jump and shoot and it's really easy to get hit. And of course, you collect power-ups and get more powerful shots and refill your life bar and all that good stuff. There's also a power-up which will let you transform into a giant mech-like thing, and this is definitely preferable to being on the bike. In the next level, you're on foot running, jumping, and shooting. The only thing you need to do here is make it to the end of the stage and go into any doors that you come across. Eventually you'll get to a boss fight and they're fairly easy to defeat. Then it's back on your bike for the next level. The levels alternate each time between bike and platform segments. The jump and action buttons are still backwards, and that really bothers me this time around as it's a much more action-oriented game than the first one. The graphics have improved slightly, but there's still really nothing special. The music is a little better now, especially if you listen to it in FM. I'd say that this is a far worse game than its predecessor, and we never saw another Zillion game after this.
Here's the first Castlevania for the NES. This was the game that single-handedly made me want to play games forever. After I played this, I kept searching for that awesome experience over and over again that so few games seem to offer. I love the level design and the play mechanics. Killing enemies with a whip felt so good. Then you get a sub-weapon to do even more damage, and that felt really good, especially when you get the ×3. Being able to fight and kill zombies, bats, and Medusa heads was really fun. The boss fights were always intense, and killing mummies, Frankenstein, Death, and Dracula was such a great feeling. Then, to make this game even better, it had a soundtrack that was so perfect. It was medieval, electronic, and haunting all at the same time. This is a great game. When Konami released Castlevania II also for the NES, I was so happy that I lost all control of my bowels and recolored my underwear. But then I started playing the game and I was kinda disappointed at what I was experiencing. Konami took away the stage-based levels. They also took away the ability to get whip power-ups and sub-weapons from whipping candles. They turned the whole game into an action RPG. I didn't like that every 5 minutes day turns to night and night turns to day. This was a strange feeling at first. You see, at nighttime you can't enter buildings. This means no replenishing your health at the church and no buying items. You have to wait until daytime, which sometimes seems like forever. The only benefit is that killing enemies at night gives you more hearts. Hearts are your currency in this game, and you spend them to upgrade your whip and buy other items. I found myself wandering all over the place because it's not very intuitive what you need to do or where you need to go. The hints that the townspeople give you can be pretty vague, and the signage in town is the same. Castles in this game are big with many traps and pitfalls. After wandering around for about 15 to 20 minutes, you'll find a sack that contains pieces of Dracula's body. You need to assemble all of these to resurrect Dracula so you can kill him again. As the years went by, I never really picked this game up again and played it. At the time, the only thing I enjoyed about it was the soundtrack. It has many tracks that are now classics and are immediately recognizable. But playing again for this review, I found myself enjoying it more than I did in the past. I still don't like it nearly as much as other games in the series, but it is a solid action game that just has its own place in the history of Castlevania.
The Ys series is an amazing collection of action RPG games. This here is Ys Book 1 and 2 on the TurboGrafx-16 CD-ROM. Ys is known for its overhead view and bump and grind play mechanics where you simply bump into enemies to fight them instead of actually pressing buttons to attack. Not only do you fight this way, but you even talk to villagers and other NPCs in this fashion. It's not for everybody, but if you give it a good, honest chance, it'll definitely grow on you. This particular version, which is on the Turbo CD, has some amazing music and cutscenes.
This is the land of Ys.
Both Ys 1 and Ys 2 are packaged onto a single disc. Honestly, I really can't recommend this game enough, and it was extremely well received. So it seemed really odd when Falcom decided that Ys 3 would be a side-scrolling action RPG platformer. This is also the Turbo CD version. Everything now takes place from a side view, and you actually press a button to swing your sword and attack enemies. This particular version has some pretty damn choppy scrolling, but you get used to it fairly quick and it really doesn't affect the playability at all. But one wonders what was going through Falcom's mind when they decided to make these drastic changes. Granted, there are a couple of side-scrolling parts in Ys 2, kinda. Here you only have one town to visit and only a few different areas to explore. The mazes are much simpler, and overall the game itself is pretty damned easy as well. Is it still a good game? Well, yeah, it's actually quite enjoyable, but it's not as good as the originals. Apparently most people thought the same way because they went back to the original overhead style for Ys 4 and all the other games that followed. And if you want to see us go into a lot more depth, check out our episode that's dedicated to the Ys series.
Dracula X for the PC Engine CD is just about as good as Castlevania can get. This is my second favorite Castlevania game, right behind Castlevania IV. In terms of stage-based Castlevania games, this is the pinnacle. A lot of the stages had multiple paths, and getting 100% was something you really wanted to accomplish. I had 100% at one point, but once Bill replaced all the capacitors in my Duo, it erased the memory. I couldn't be more happy about this, because now I have to try to get 100% again. Simply one of the best Castlevanias Konami has ever made. The attention to detail in this game is just unbelievable. Look at this guy, sitting in his chair for who knows how many hundreds of years, and when you walk by him, he just turns to dust. That's the detail that I'm talking about. Even the soundtrack is outstanding. This was the first time I heard a Castlevania soundtrack in CD quality audio. Then, in 1997, Konami went and did something really strange with a direct sequel called Symphony of the Night on PlayStation. They took my beloved stage-based Castlevania and turned it into a huge castle that you can wander around freely. This, of course, coined the new term Metroidvania. At first I was a bit peeved because I didn't want change. I was happy with stages. I like stages. Then they made you play as Alucard, which was okay, but he has no whip. I like the whip. Then the voice acting in the US version just about ruined any seriousness that this game has.
I was called here by humans who wish to pay me tribute.
Oh my god, Joe and I sound like stars compared to these people. Now you collect weapons along the way and equip them like an RPG. It took a little bit of time, but I eventually turned my frown upside down and really started to like this game. The castle is huge, and it only opens up a little bit at a time. You must acquire abilities along the way, like being able to turn into a mist or a wolf. Once you do, you can reach new areas and the thrill of exploration comes back. What a great idea and a great direction to take the game. And to top it off, you get another killer soundtrack. There were so many great songs in this game that I bought the soundtrack immediately. You can't go wrong with either of these Castlevania games, and they both should be experienced by every gamer out there.
Alex Kidd in Miracle World was one of the major standout games early in the life of the Sega Master System. It provided Sega with an extremely lovable mascot. Well, maybe mildly likable. It was a side-scrolling platform game with adventurous overtones, and when it came down to it, this game was basically Sega's Mario. You run and jump your way through horizontally and vertically scrolling levels, smashing blocks, grabbing money, and collecting power-ups. There's even shops where you can buy stuff with all the money you've found. You even get to play rock, paper, scissors in order to defeat bosses. And I mean, come on, who wouldn't love that? Alex's controls are very slippery, however, and that definitely detracts from the fun. You know what else detracts from the fun? The fact that the jump and punch buttons are backwards, just like in Zillion. What was up with Sega in these early days? But there is a lot of variety, especially for an early game. Alex Kidd in Miracle World was extremely popular among Master System owners back in the day. When time came to create a sequel with Alex Kidd The Lost Stars, they went in a completely different direction. Now the game is far more simple. There's no money collecting, no rock, paper, scissors, no adventure. All you need to do is make it to the end of the level. That's it. You can get power-ups like a jump boost or a shot, and they're all only temporary. Overall, the game is pretty easy, but you're going to need to go through each stage twice in order to reach this exciting ending screen. Very rewarding. The best part about this game, as I've said before, is Alex's death scream. In fact, it's fun to kill the little guy just to hear him scream. The controls here aren't slippery at all, unlike the first game, and they fixed the button orientation, so that was all a welcome improvement. The graphics are bright and colorful, and the music is bouncy and happy. Do I like this better than Miracle World? You know, I think I do. It's super simple, but it's just so much more fun to play. I don't have to worry about piss-poor controls or memorizing rock, paper, scissors matches either. Now, this one was actually based on an arcade game, but none of the other Alex Kidd games that followed Miracle World even attempted to recapture the playstyle of the first game, even in the slightest. It wasn't until Alex Kidd and the Enchanted Castle on the Genesis that the series would return to a similar playstyle. The series just really couldn't make up its mind at what it wanted to be.
Alright, Joe, there you have it. 4 Castlevania games from me, and you know what? 3 of the 4 are awesome. Actually, Castlevania II isn't that bad. Now that I played it again, I actually like it a lot more than I did a long time ago.
Oh, well, that's good for you, I guess.
Yeah.
You still got to play that one that we covered in the Hacks and Homebrews episode with the better translation of Castlevania.
Oh, I do. I would actually like to play that, yes.
Yeah. Well, maybe someday. And, well, we've got more of these types of games to cover, so let's just get right on back to it.
Super Adventure Island for the Super Nintendo plays very similar to the Adventure Island games that we all know and love. Actually, I don't really love this game, but I do like it. As we've mentioned before, you play as Master Higgins trying to get your woman back who was turned to stone. You run through each level killing enemies and collecting fruit along the way. Fruit is essential as your life bar is slowly depleting the entire time you're playing. Eating fruits will keep your life bar full. I sometimes wonder what's the point of having a life bar if you don't use it. If you so much as even get touched by an enemy, you die. That's really lame, as it completely eliminates the need for a life bar. Luckily for you, you have weapons that can be powered up and they do clear a path for you rather well. I like the boomerang weapon because you can toss it up and down, unlike the axe. The boss fights are pretty simple once you learn their patterns. That goes for the rest of the game as well. Once you learn a level, you can easily navigate any obstacle in your way. I gotta say that the best part about this game is the soundtrack, surprise surprise, and it was created by none other than the master Yuzo Koshiro. He's created a very lively, upbeat set of tracks that really keep this game interesting. Super Adventure Island 2 on the Super Nintendo attempted to add some unnecessary depth to the series. The story starts with Master Higgins and his new wife on the way to their honeymoon. It must have been a very poor wedding if all they can do is float freely on a wooden raft. The game feels a lot more like an adventure game. Master Higgins goes from level to level on a raft. As he's making his way, he'll get into random battles. If you decide to fight, you might gain some coin or health from a fallen enemy. If you don't want to fight, just push your way to the edge of the screen to escape. The actual game levels are pretty big. Even the gameplay in these areas has been changed a bit. This time there's no life bar that automatically drains. You can walk around freely exploring each area until you get stuck or find a boss. If you get stuck, it usually means you don't have the item needed to open up the path. There's lots of secret areas as well. I really don't like the direction that this game took. I was used to it and really liked the previous games in the series, and I feel this one just failed at what it was trying to do. It slowed down the pace of the game and made it feel more tedious trying to find items. It's almost like they were trying to take their version of Wonder Boy and put him into his own version of a Monster World game, but just couldn't pull it off. It also doesn't help that Yuzo Koshiro didn't create the soundtrack. The soundtrack here isn't bad, but it definitely isn't Koshiro-san level of quality. Stick with the first game, it's much better.
Dave talked about ToeJam Earl on the Genesis a year ago, and now it's my turn. Basically, it's a game with a slightly angled overhead view that has our protagonist wandering around starring in a collect-a-thon. ToeJam and Earl are aliens who crash-landed into Earth and their highly funky, ultra-cool, righteous Ratmaster rocket ship broke up. Now it's up to you to find all of the pieces to the ship and escape back to your home planet of Funkatron. Unfortunately, you have to deal with everything that Earth offers, like crazy devils, insane dentists, hula girls, chubby cherubs, and even swarms of angry bees. But you need to avoid them in order to make it to the elevator that will take you to the next floor. Oddly, the world is flat and consists of many floors. If you fall off the edge, you simply land on the previous floor that you were on. These worlds are randomly generated, but you also have the option to play in a fixed world. Along the way, you'll collect presents which grant you temporary powers like wings so you can fly, or even tomatoes so that you can crush your enemies. Unfortunately, everything moves really slow. The graphics are okay, though they're fairly choppy. The music is fairly good, and it was considered pretty dope fresh back in the day. But overall, the game plays just too slowly, and tedium can set in by the 8th or 9th floor, and there are a total of 24 floors. Also, there's what appears to be loading time between the floors, and it's not short by any means, and it gets old pretty fast. It's an interesting game, and definitely more fun with 2 players.
Boogie, 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 boogie. Boogie, 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 boogie. Boogie, 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 boogie.
2 years later, ToeJam and Earl Panic on Funkatron was released, also on the Genesis. This takes place immediately after ToeJam and Earl get back to their home planet after beating the first game. But it turns out that humans clung to the outside of your spaceship, and now the planet is infested with humans. And of course, all humans without exception are annoying and destructive, so you gotta capture them with jars and send them back to Earth. The game is now a side-scrolling platformer, and your first goal is to find the humans. They can be hiding in the trees or bushes or even in plain sight. You throw a bunch of jars at them and somehow that traps them. Once you've cleared the level of all the humans, you ship them back and you're off to the next level. You even have a funk scan to help show where hidden items are, and yes, that includes those nasty humans. Finding and trapping everybody is easier said than done, as the levels are fairly big. Now, this game is obviously a huge departure from the first game. The developers were actually programming a sequel that stayed true to the original, but pressure from Sega made them change their mind. This one definitely has more action, and it is kind of hard to get into, but after you play it for a while and figures things out, it's not that bad. The graphics are hugely improved over the first game, and I really like the artwork. The funk scan almost has a Yoshi's Island feel to it. The music is still good, and now it's even in stereo. Fortunately, there's a password system so you can save your progress. I think I agree with Dave in preferring the first game over this one. I think it's easier to get into despite being so tedious. Not that this game is bad or anything.
Yes. Yes.
Here's a great game, Super Mario Land 2, the 6 golden coins for the Game Boy. Man, this title brings back lots of great memories for me. I played this one many times when it was released and throughout the years and have never gotten bored with it. It's another game produced by Gunpei Yokoi, and it feels like a true sequel to the first game where everything was improved upon. Just like the first game, this one takes you on an adventure in levels that don't feel at all like other Mario games. Sure, it has coin boxes and the occasional Goombas and Koopas, but everything else is just different and in a good way. There's so much variety in the worlds you'll visit, and the levels are all really well designed. The music in here is good with a few exceptional tracks. My only complaint is that it might be a tad on the easy side, or it might not be. Since I played this game so many times, it might just feel easy. This is just an outstanding example of what the Game Boy was all about. When Nintendo announced Super Mario Land 3 Wario Land, I was naturally excited. But that excitement started to diminish when I saw that Mario wasn't going to be the lead character. For some reason, Nintendo thought it would be a good idea for Wario to have his own adventures. I just finished ejecting Wario from his castle in the previous game, and now he's the star? No way! Well, being the level-headed gamer that I am, I thought I'd let Wario have a chance to change my mind. I did like the premise of this game, which has Wario trying to collect as many coins as possible to buy a large castle. The more coins he collects, the bigger the castle, and that sets the game up for multiple endings. Wario plays differently from other Mario games as he has different abilities. He can jump on enemies, bump into them, or charge at them with his shoulder. He can also collect different hats that give him new abilities. A jet helmet lets him fly through the air, a dragon helmet that spits flames, and a bull helmet makes him more powerful. It's actually pretty fun to use these throughout the game. If you lose your helmet, you become small and completely useless. But if you can find some garlic, you'll grow again and be able to attack enemies and break blocks again. Graphically, the game is a mixed bag. The backgrounds aren't detailed, but the character sprites are, and that leaves you paying more attention to your character than anything else. The music is pretty basic and doesn't add much to the game's atmosphere. Well, after playing this, I think Wario has earned a spot as a fun character to play. Just as long as Nintendo doesn't replace Mario, I'll be happy.
Final Zone on the Genesis is an early game from Wolf Team. In this one, you play as a large mech called a Nap roaming around the playfield with an isometric view. You have a normal shot as well as a special shot and can even switch between weapons if you like. The goal of each level is to destroy a certain amount of enemies. Mostly though, you'll be running into these annoying drones which don't count towards the number of enemies that you need to destroy. Anyway, once you're done doing all that, you fight a boss. After that's done, surprise surprise, you go to the next stage and do it all again. You can tell that this was a fairly early game. The graphics are average at best. The background tiles have a very dithered and repetitive look to them. The screen doesn't scroll smoothly or even at a consistent speed. The music isn't bad, but the sound effects sure are. Just listen. Yikes. It's a fairly easy game, and to be honest, it's even kind of fun, but at the end of the day, it probably isn't one you're going to be yearning to play very often. Now later that year they released Final Zone 2 on the TurboGrafx-16 CD. Oh god. At first glance, this is more of a commando-style run-and-gun. You carefully make your way up screen, destroying enemies as you go and refilling your life and your special weapon stock. You're no longer in a giant mech, but instead something that's more like body armor. Your goal is to simply make it to the end of the stage and defeat the boss instead of taking out certain numbers of enemies placed throughout the stage. One stage even plays like a vertical shooter. In the later stages, you can even select between different characters and choose the one you think will work best for that stage, but you can't switch during the stage. Obviously, the feeling and the pacing of this game is very different. The graphics are much cleaner, more organic, and have a lot more color to them, but there aren't any fancy effects. And the music, oh god, the music. Just listen to how awesome this is. And that's not all. This game is full of stuff like that. Check out this wonderful musical gift that they blessed us with in the title screen.
Fight to the death, watching them fall, burst into flames with bazookas.
Wow, it's like God came down and started tonguing my ear. This game also has lots of cutscenes featuring absolutely terrific voice acting, just like us here at GameSack.
So, only 6 of us survived. Oh, Bomber. I thought you were the one who revolted.
There might be people who would hate you just for being so good.
Damn you! Bastards of the Confederate forces!
Why can't you stay here with me?
Don't force me to repeat myself.
I've had enough of war.
Bowie.
I'll be happy to die by your hand.
So, you don't know then?
What don't I know?
I thought I was lucky, but you must have 9 lives.
Hurry, put that on.
You have a nice outfit on. Is it new?
Let me show them some fancy action now.
You would say that.
Oh man, I think I just had a voice acting gasm. And although you may think this is the game that changed things up, the first Final Zone in Japan was actually more similar to this one. The game we call Final Zone in the US is called FZ Axis in Japan, and it's an offshoot of the series, so it's actually the one that's different. Despite the gameplay being extraordinarily average and the audio being extraordinarily ridiculous, I like Final Zone 2 best.
Everything like a dream, you always make me scream, just like a shooting star run through my heart. I know you're there because about the revolution. Protecting lives we must, they will steal their trust. I'll be there for you anytime you call.
Here's the first Super Mario Bros. Everybody over the age of 20 has played this game, and probably 95% of those people have favorable opinions of it. I'm not going to go into any detail of how this game is played because we all know that. I'm just going to mention a few of the memories I have from a long time ago. I first played this game at a friend's house and just loved it immediately. I couldn't get enough of it, and I didn't have a Nintendo at the time. I'd also play this game in the arcades every chance I could get. Even when I did finally get my own NES and had this game, I'd still put money into it at the arcade. What a weirdo I was. Thank God it was my mom's money. So many cool things in this game that really opened my eyes to what gaming could be about. Like the first time I found the hidden block with the 1-up in stage 1. I wondered how many places might have hidden blocks for me to discover. Another thing in underground stages that I found really cool was being able to break through the ceiling and run across the tops of the screen right behind all the level stats. How is this possible? And of course, finding the warp zone pipes was a huge deal. Being able to skip stages that you don't like was like a gift from Miyamoto himself. I have lots of memories, but I'll just add one more. I remember at certain times when clearing a level and jumping on the flagpole that there would be fireworks in the background. I had no idea how this happened and always kept trying to figure it out. I can't remember where I got the information, but finally it was revealed to me. Once you jump on the flagpole, the timer stops. If the last digit lands on a 1, 3, or 6, you get fireworks that correspond to those numbers. From then on out, I always tried to land on the flagpole at just the right time. Now here's Super Mario Bros. 2. I've already reviewed this one and we all know the history. Nintendo put their characters in an already existing game called Doki Doki Panic. So again, there's no need to go there or into the gameplay, but like Super Mario Bros., I'll reflect on some of my favorite memories. I first played this game in New York at my sister's house. I knew Super Mario Bros. Very well and was wondering why this game was so different. My first experiences were mixed. I didn't like pulling vegetables out of the ground to kill your enemies. And what's up with this chemistry flask? It took a great deal of time before I figured out that throwing this thing in different areas would reveal bonus game coins and mushrooms. One of my first memories was when I figured out how to fight Birdo. I remember just sitting there dodging the eggs he threw at me and thought, where are the vegetables that I need to pull to kill this guy with? I tried standing on his head to pull him up and throw him, but that never worked. Finally, I landed on one of his eggs by accident and rode it across the screen. That's when I realized that you needed to use his own weapon to defeat him. The few bosses in this game were really fun to fight. I liked killing the mouse with his own bombs. Some doors needed keys, and getting the key from a completely different area all while being harassed by the key guardian was always intense. I really liked that idea though. Not fighting Bowser at the end was kinda strange. Who is this wart guy? I love the music while fighting him and it'll always be recognizable to me. So will the music in the end credits. What a great nighttime melody. Oh, and yes, Peach is the only real way to play this game.
All right, there we go. Games that deviate from the previous entry in the series for whatever reason.
Yeah, and most of them were good. Actually, some of them were even better than the previous game.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know, did you have a hard time coming up with games for this episode? Because I sure did.
Yeah, hugely had a hard time. I mean, off the top of my head, I really couldn't think of but one or two.
Yeah, now I could think of a couple more, like maybe like Wonder Boy to Wonder Boy and Monsterland. But let me ask you guys, can you think of any other examples that would fit into this genre? Because it's really, really hard. But I'm sure you guys have examples, because you always do.
You always do. And if you don't, this will be the last time we cover this topic. So.
Yeah, true. So let us know if you can think of any. And in the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack. All right, Dave, you ready to... What the hell?
Yeah. You like it? It's pretty good, huh?
You have hair.
I do. I was thinking that, we're coming up to 100,000 subs here, but it's gone really slow lately, and I figured that since people like people with hair, that this would get us there a lot quicker than what we're doing right now.
Dude, is that CGI'd on?
Well, I was going to get plugs at first, but I thought maybe I should do CGI first to see how I like it. I like it.